My first experience was working as postdoc research fellow in a basic lab in California, and it's part of UCSF. That lab was part affiliated with UCSF, and it was specialized in chlamydia research. So in order to get one response for volunteering, I had to email around 2,000 people in a period of 3 months. So I did all my steps in 2017. I did step 1 in March 2017. Then the CS was in June and the CK was in August. And they were like within 6 or 7 months. I know that seems crazy, but I wanted to catch September application, which is, I don't advise anyone to rush for the exam. Just take your time. Scores are more important than when you have to finish. If someone has an attempt, they have to work on other aspects.
Right.
Like, yeah, so people won't focus on these red flags. So they have to do an extra effort. If you're lucky, past 2 steps with 250, you are in the safe zone, but if you're not in the safe zone, that means it's not like it's a hopeless case, you won't get matched, but you need to spend extra time and do more effort to get to that point. I was doing the basic science research. It was mainly, as I mentioned, chlamydia research. We were working with some also pharmaceutical industry to develop like in-home testing for chlamydia and gonorrhea. So I was helping a lot with that. I volunteered with some organization that helped to empower women, like AHA Foundation. I was writing articles with them. So I believe that extracurricular activities is very important and very crucial, especially in this country. What helped me also that I worked with Planned Parenthood in California. I worked as medical assistant over there, especially working in an area. I know people do a lot of medical assistant job, but when you work with vulnerable group, people, usually people coming to Planned Parenthood, people with low income, people are not insured, and my population is the population of my interest, women and their problems, whether like bleeding, abortion. So I think that experience enriched me a lot and helped to uplift my resume. This basically was my third cycle. Usually in my mind, I consider this my second cycle because the first cycle I get no interviews, but I will elaborate more on that part. So for the 2018 match, like cycle, I applied to almost 200 programs. I get no interviews at all. And at that time, as I mentioned before, I rushed all my exams in 2017, so my scores were in average range. I didn't have any USA letters when I applied. I used my like Saudi Arabia recommendation letters, which people, especially surgical specialties, they don't count on them. And they were like more of like standard letters. They were not that great. So I get no interviews. Unfortunately, I learned a lot of things as I go. I did not read a lot. I didn't ask people in OBGYN or people who match in surgical specialty. So I get no interviews. 200 programs, no interviews. 2019 cycle, I have applied to 125 programs. I get interviews in 4 of them, but I did not match. And surprisingly, this year I applied to 52 or 54 OBGYN programs. And I get 3 interviews. I matched. But this year I tried to learn from my mistakes. So I just went through all programs. I did my homework. Any program that not diverse, not have any IMG. Certain states, especially southern states, they take IMGs in certain specialties, but not in surgical specialties. So I just overlooked all these programs. And usually for OBGYN, it's New York, New Jersey, Texas, sometimes Michigan. Yeah. So I focus on these areas. I have to tell, like to clarify that part, I think it's different from specialty to another. For example, I heard my friends in pediatric and internal medicine, they say, no, you need to apply broadly. For surgical specialties, I think this is not the case. To apply, yeah, apply smart for the residency match. And I feel like if you are focused on something, eventually it will happen. It's just a matter of time. Some people are patient, some people are not patient. It's not like I stopped my life just for the match process. I was still working, I was still making money, I get married and everything, but I'm not gonna give up applying for residency. People think the more cycles you have, it's a waste of time and waste of money. But I think every cycle, like if you fail to match or if you fail to get an interview, you learn something new, you do more research. Actually, I feel like my application was more polished every year. Even my personality, my experience, the way I answer in the interviews, I feel like a big difference. Yeah. I was very lucky to get connected to you through my friend. I was practicing with my husband the interviews for the last two since we were engaged. I was giving him hard time, like, oh, help me. He's working as a manager in one store, so he interviewed people, but it's totally different field. I was watching YouTubes, but I never knew what I was doing or what I was answering is the correct way to answer. So I was practicing with my peers who are applying to residency, but we are on the same boat. We have the same experience. So actually, we cannot tell each other like when and how we went wrong. So it was it was a pleasure to meet you, and it was very beneficial to have these sessions before the interviews. So you guided me. You highlighted the areas in my resume that I need to mention in the interview cycle, in the interview part. And you helped me also, which is something I didn't do the last two cycles, to research the programs properly. Search a lot about the program director, even their publications. This year, with your help, I was literally like knowing everything about the program director, at least the prominent people that I'm expecting them in the interview, the chairman and the program director. And I remember in the program where I matched, when the program director asked me, do you have any questions? I told her, I'm just curious, why did you leave Hawaii and came to New York? And she was surprised that I knew that she was in military base hospital in Hawaii.
With you.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was reading about her and like my husband, I told my husband she was in Hawaii, and my husband loves Hawaii so much. He told me, who would leave Hawaii and go to New York? So I felt more natural and more genuine during the interviews this year, because and I think it was a great job to time the practice sessions with you just before the interviews. You helped me very well preparing me for personal questions. So just to let everyone know, not it's not because you are in the United States, everyone is going to be professional. So I had an encounter last year where people asked me unprofessional questions and like very personal questions. And I really did not, I didn't see that coming. So I wasn't prepared to answer and I freaked out a little bit. But this year I shared all the personal questions that I had last year with you. And surprisingly, someone asked me the same question, personal unprofessional question this year, and it was in a university prestigious program. So I was like just ready to answer. And I think the practice, like with the sessions and everything, helped me a lot. Um, I would say 99% of the questions are the same routine questions. Even it's not like the one we all, there are two questions that I ask, everyone asking us, oh, tell me about yourself. Why did you choose this program? Some programs that didn't ask me beyond these two questions. Yeah, these are the usual questions. I had one personal question twice this cycle. I had an interesting question where telling me, can you impersonate two people have two different opinions about one subject and how they defend their opinions. And that, of course, that's something I didn't prepare for. I never heard about these questions. So I answered quickly. I did not hesitate, but I went wrong when I brought up politics, because that's the first things that cross your mind when you ask about such these questions. So I brought up politics, and I think she liked my answer, but after that I realized that I shouldn't bring up anything about politics or religions. Well, that was not very difficult for me because I had only 3 interviews. So I think people who have 10 or 8 interviews, that's going to be a challenge for them. For me, I just went with my gut, where I felt comfortable, where I liked the place. And I know that may sound crazy, but yeah, I ranked a community hospital sometime before university program, and I did this last year. So it depends, like, how comfortable I felt with the staff, how I liked the area, how reasonable is the prices of the area, and I'm very happy now I'm going to a reasonable place in terms of prices, in terms of crowd and traffic. So yeah, and it was my first choice. Yes, I would ask more people before I apply. I would take my time for USMLE. Actually, I did the self-assessment, and I know that I'm gonna get in my 20s, and I did not care. So I just wanted to catch the like the September cycle. Don't do that, guys. Take your time. It's safer to get 240 or more, especially for surgical specialty. And yeah, in terms of research, yeah, because I had my notes written.
Yeah.
In terms of research, I would highly recommend to do clinical research versus basic science. I enjoyed basic science. I learned a lot. I'm very comfortable working in a lab and conducting a lot of experiments, but that's not gonna push your application, because in the labs, most of the labs, you don't have the PI, they're not working in hospitals, some of them, so you will not get the chance to network. That's number one. Number two, in order to publish in basic science lab, that's gonna take forever. Sometimes project takes 2 years or 3 years to publish. That's completely different from the clinical research. Clinical research can take a few years, but sometimes for case report, case series, a small project, you can publish as many as possible in 1 year. So that's the thing that I would do it differently. But at that moment, as I told you, I didn't have any choice. That was the only email. And I really enjoyed the experience. I enjoyed my PI, but I had only barely one publication, and I didn't network for 2 years. I was like stuck in the lab. Well, I have only one question. So for the residency programs who match IMG and AMG, do you think they look at IMG different in a different way? Are they expecting them to do like an extra effort? Do I need to do an extra effort compared to my peers, my AMG peers, to be like on the right spot, to be as good as them? Should I spend the same effort or extra effort based on the program's expectations?
And you absolutely may or may not have some strengths and some weaknesses compared to your American colleagues. One thing you'll see, they're very comfortable, their bedside manner, obviously their language skills are more strong than you. They'll know the layout of the hospital faster than you. You'll have a little bit of a steep learning curve, but then it'll level out within the first 3 months. But here's a tip for you. If you're worried about that, you know, find a like a attending mentor or somebody you feel comfortable with within the first couple of months, and check in with them and ask them, hey, what do you think about me on rounds? What else could I be doing different? Is there something, like, instead of you just making it AMG versus IMG, just make that just doing well in the program and meeting their expectations, right? Because they also have to meet expectations. Sometimes they get into unprofessional behavior or showing up late and stuff like that. So number one thing for an intern is being on time. being open, learning, and having a positive attitude. So all of those things combined, and also make sure you take care of yourself, that when you're working all these long hours, that you have some time for fun, rest, sleep, you know, see family as much as possible, laugh, and lose that smile, you know, that personality that everybody likes so much about you. Well, thank you, Dr. Eklas, so much for joining us.
I agree. You're welcome. Thank you.
And I'll be
Keep in touch.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.